Since Apple has introduced Creator Studio, we need to tell Apple what we want to see in this new suite of software. So Apple, you're expecting creators to subscribe and continue subscribing. For that to happen, we need to see a lot of new features in Creator Studio apps, and quickly. Hi, I'm John Bullock, and welcome to the Tech iHound. Now that Apple has introduced Creator Studio, it's time for them to step up their pace for adding new features and content. Some of their marketing representatives have already stated that they understand this challenge. They're also stated that they need to open up communication between the software team and us creators. We need to do our part in this new relationship by letting Apple know what we creators want. This is my list of things that I want Apple to consider for the apps that I currently use: Final Cut Pro, Keynote, Pages, and Pixelmator Pro. I'm going to limit them to the Mac because that's what I use most of the time, even though I do have a good iPad. Please understand that my list is much simpler than some. I'm not a professional, but I'm the type of creator that Apple Creator Studio is aimed at. I'm limiting my list to a baker's dozen. First of all, we need a better way to communicate with the Apple teams that engineer these apps. Apple, while you have established a way for us to report bugs and a simple page on your website where creators can send in comments, that's not enough. Creators need to be able to provide input on the enhancements to apps before they're published. I know that in recent years, there's been a Final Cut Summit where users can sit down with the team and exchange information and ideas, plus sit on special presentations by the team and other creators. Isn't that sort of what WWDC is for developers? This Final Cut Pro Summit needs to be expanded. Maybe not the size of WWDC, but why not? If creators have become so important to Apple, why don't we have something like that for creators as well as developers? Yes, realistically, I know we can't all get together at Apple Park, but we can through the internet. Some of those presentations and demonstrations from the Final Cut Summit should be categorized and supplied through the internet. There should be many more Apple-produced tutorials and demonstrations similar to what's available from Adobe right now. Yes, I said that word, Adobe. Even smaller companies like Everweb that I use for creating websites does a better job than Apple does. Every time they do the slightest upgrade, I receive a notice on YouTube telling me about the video that fully explains all the new changes. And there are literally hundreds of tutorials from them on their website. There are other ways you can improve the communication between software teams and creators. Going forward, instead of all the secrecy of what the software is that you're developing, we need some way, like a beta program, for us to be able to provide feedback, like the way you do with developers on the operating system. This all needs to be extended beyond Final Cut Pro. It needs to happen for all the apps that are in Creator Studio. That's even the free ones. All the apps in Creator Studio would benefit from such communication and openness. Since you've put all these apps into a suite and are charging a subscription, they're all more important than they were in the past, especially when some of them were just free. All we get from you is press releases and announcements that are always a surprise. This isn't an area where secrecy is necessary. Your competitors are already ahead. Second, Apple, you must step up the pace. You've said you're more committed to helping users create and do unimaginable things, but then you need to start providing better tools and more assets at a quicker pace. The status quo, piecemeal smatterings of updates has to stop. Final Cut Pro is clearly behind, and stepping up the pace is the only way you're going to catch up with other companies' apps. Third, Apple, I'd love to see an improved captioning system in Final Cut Pro. Something like dynamic captioning animations. That's what today's viewers really want to see, and one reason people have left Final Cut Pro. Yes, I want to see some of the captioning we see in things like TikTok. Now let's see it in Final Cut Pro. Fourth, speaking of transcripts, my next idea fits in here nicely. Apple, you claim you're experts at machine learning. I've heard you say that for years. At the very least, use your expertise in machine learning to provide a feature that creates rough draft edits by eliminating silent spots and selecting the best choice of repeated takes. Yes, text-based editing. Things like Gling AI save editors hours by automatically cutting out silences and bad takes. This is an essential feature in today's world. My fifth idea sits right in here. Apple, speaking of machine learning that you're so proud of, we need to see audio tools that elevate the voice. We're not all experts at EQ. Ophonic and Adobe Podcasts are good examples of this. With all of your work with sound in creating Logic Pro, perhaps it might take just the two teams exchanging information. We already know that they're speaking to each other.
And when we think about a feature like beat detection in Final Cut Pro, we actually borrowed that AI technology from our friends over at Logic, so thank you, Dan T.
Smart tempo.
Yeah.
Let's expand on that. My sixth request would fit right in here. How about an AI tool like a dialogue matcher? This tool would match one piece of dialogue to another, matching tone, level, and room or exterior ambiance. An editor could click on a target clip that they wish to match and choose its dialogue profile. The tool would then match dialogue recorded in a different environments on a different device or shoots spanning several days on the target clips, giving them the same sound properties. For me, this would be very helpful. Often I have difficulty matching voiceover dialogue to what I've recorded on camera, or matching takes I've made on different days can be difficult. There's also a way to overdub and correct words that were mispronounced or the wrong word was used. I've even seen some that correct the movements of the lips. Seventh, and this is a big one, we need more plugins for Final Cut Pro. More high-end transition packs, programmable templates, titles and effects, and whatever else you can think of. Yes, we got a few now in 12, but we need more in order for Final Cut Pro to catch up. Why are we still going to third parties for basic utility plugins? Eighth is another big one. You mentioned a sound library. I'm hoping that this includes all kinds of sounds and music for Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and Keynote. We need material that places like Soundly, Epidemic Sound, Artlist, SoundSnap, and Motion Array have. It needs to be high-quality, royalty-free music and sound effects, not just the ones we can get free on YouTube. And the ones you have need to pass through YouTube's AI-assisted copyright filter. Some of these services have even expanded into AI voice generators, something that you could also add. That would be great as well, but again, it needs to be done at a high level. Ninth is a big one as well. Apple, you're justifying this subscription because it provides premium content. You've introduced a content hub. If this is just the usual stuff I can get free off of Pixabay and Pexels, that's not enough. It needs to be truly premium, and we need to see it start growing quickly as creators make requests for content to meet their needs. As with music, this material needs to be high-end and royalty-free. 10th is a totally different direction, but it's rather simple. Apple, I use Keynote a lot. It's more powerful than most give it credit for, but it's become somewhat stagnant. I want to see more and better actions for animations. Build-in, build-out action choices need to be expanded on. The team needs to use their imaginations and your machine learning skills to expand on what's there. 11th Apple, I'd like to see better coordination between the apps. Things like interconnectivity plus similar interfaces and terms would be great. Ways for these apps to connect to each other and make it much more smoothly than it is now. For example, moving Keynote images and movies over to Final Cut needs to be a little easier, or perhaps moving something from Pages into Keynote. Even adding some iCloud storage to Creator Studio would be nice too. Something along this line would be great for people like me who use Keynote. You know that export choice in Pixelmator Pro to export files as motion files? Here's an example of what I'm talking about. In Pixelmator Pro, I can convert the letters of this word to shapes. So each letter in Apple has its own capability of being reshaped and moved around just like any other object can. Then those shapes can be exported over to other apps. The choices you provide are Pixelmator Pro Document, Photoshop Document, and Motion Project. How about creating the same choice for Keynote? I'd love to be able to create shapes and pictures in Pixelmator Pro and send them directly to Keynote while keeping all the properties like push and pull points and individual objects just like I can in Motion. I know the teams are working together. This is what Will said about it.
Just opportunities to work across the apps and to really leverage technology that exists in other apps for that common experience we think is really important.
12th is a very special one for me, and it would save me a lot of time and frustration. While I realize that Keynote was made initially for presentations that are live,
they're just cheap laptops. And we don't think that they're a third category device. But we think we've got something that is. And we'd like to show it to you today for the first time. And we call it the iPad. One more thing.
I don't use it that way. Instead, I use Keynote for video clips or transparent overlays for video clips. Most of the extra text, arrows, and other graphics were made in Keynote in this video. It's a great way to animate text and other things on the screen. This slide is one of the overlays that I made for this video, and it's a good example. Notice the default in the build order says on click. And the transition between clicks over there on the right also defaults to on click. I'd love to be able to go somewhere into settings and change these to after transition and automatically, respectively. That way, I wouldn't need to do it numerous times for every video clip that I make. And I won't forget to make the changes, which will save me a lot of frustration when I'm trying to review a sequence of clips in Keynote before converting it to a movie file. 13th. Yes, I said a baker's dozen. Apple, this is a small, simple request, but it's something that bugs me every time I use Final Cut Pro. You know that little dash at the bottom of Final Cut window that shows where you are on the timeline? Yeah, you're having trouble finding it too. It's right there. If you can't find it, it needs to be fixed for someone like me. Please make that brighter and maybe perhaps larger or wider. These eyes have gotten old, and seeing that is really difficult. So Apple, that's my baker's dozen of ideas for Creator Studio. Apple, you literally said Creator Studio is a groundbreaking collection of powerful creative apps designed to put studio-grade power into the hands of everyone, building on the essential role Mac, iPad, and iPhone play in the lives of millions of creators around the world for video editing, music making, creative imaging, and visual productivity. Give modern creators the features, capabilities they need to experience the joy of editing and tailoring their content while realizing their artistic vision. Exciting new intelligent features and premium content build on familiar experiences with our apps. That's what we need to see. That's what we need to see from you, Apple. Perhaps not at the outset. As I keep hearing, there's more to come.
There's more to come.
Moving forward, we're going to work closely with the creator community to identify, what comes next in these apps.
But there's a lot more to come, and a key part of it is listening closely to the community.
And there will be more of that coming over time for sure.
And really, this is just the beginning. There's more to come.
But it's not too much to ask or for us to expect to start happening soon. This is your chance to prove how important creators are to your company and not just give us lip service. Your marketing staff has been making the rounds to media and creators. We need to see what they've been promising. As the old saying goes, yeah, I'm really old. They've talked the talk. Now we need to see Apple walk the walk. So Apple, how important are those of us who use your devices and your software? At one time, Final Cut was the epitome of video editors. It was used all over the place. When Final Cut Pro 10 was introduced in 2011, you were able to make these claims.
So now we have every major broadcaster on the planet relying on Final Cut Pro for mission-critical content delivery day in and day out. Final Cut Pro finds itself incredibly popular in also the independent film community. Now, these are a couple of films that were edited on Final Cut Pro that were nominated for an Academy Award this year. We have a 94% customer satisfaction ratio.
What happened? The transition from 10 to 11 took 13 years. If you're truly committed, as you say you are, to the creators from amateurs like me to high-end professionals, we need to see it. We need the tools that allow us to focus more on storytelling. Putting it simply, we need the tools that should have been there years ago. Now to my viewers, in case you're wondering, I have submitted these requests in writing to Apple. I suggest that all of you present your own list to Apple. Use their online forums. Links are in the description. Apple is looking for ideas from the creator community.
We're always looking for ways to improve and innovate, and it comes back to that community and that creator community, and especially hearing voices like yours that provide that feedback that we need to understand, does this require us to improve on a current feature, or does this require a completely novel approach and new feature? Your feedback is really, really instrumental in that.
For sure. And the conduit to receiving this feedback, we have our own feedback page at Apple, and a lot of people will provide us feedback there thinking that they're going to put it in there and no one is ever going to read it. We really do read. We read every single one.
The more we let Apple know what we want, the better the chance we'll see changes. I'm excited about the possibilities we can see in the future if Apple is recognizing the importance of creators. Those possibilities are only limited by our imagination, funding, inspiration, and our dreams. Which Creator Studio apps do you use the most? What's your top request or frustration you'd like to share with Apple? I'd love to hear from you. It would be great to establish some kind of community of viewers, so let me know in the comments. Over here are a couple of videos that you may be interested in. Please like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell. They're very important to the success of this channel. Thank you all very much for watching.